Hi, everyone. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to acknowledge something very important. Grief, as heavy and as painful as it is, often brings with it unexpected gifts. It gave us the opportunity to learn more about who we are and what truly matters, and how deeply we are capable of feeling. So today we have a very special guest. We are having a conversation with a beautiful example of that. Dr. Devin DeGref, author of The Good Grief, The Journey of Grief to Joy. She wrote this book after unexpectedly losing her mother. This profound loss has not only been a path of healing, but also a mirror reflecting back powerful lessons about life, love, and resilience. And I am so honored to have her here to share that with you. Welcome. I am Claudia Noriega-Bernstein, abundance coach, author, and host of the award-winning Don't Shrink to Fit podcast, which recently won the Women in Podcasting Award in the coaching category. Over the past 15 years, I have the privilege of connecting with women from around the world, and I am here to share all the tools I have learned along the way to help you uncover new possibilities in your life. In this space, you will hear impactful stories from women who have walked in similar shoes, sharing their wisdom and insights. Together, we will explore your passions, reveal your inner gifts, and embrace possibilities you may not have thought were within reach. Let's grow beyond limits so you never have to shrink to fit again. I have done a couple of shows about grief, but I was very curious to talk to you because I do believe that grief teaches a lot of things. I had my share of loss and identify with you in the fact that you lost a parent that wasn't sick, that was murder.
Mhm.
And we're never prepared for that.
Mm-mm.
When you see somebody in the hospital, when you see somebody dealing with cancer or, you know, years of dealing with medical issues, then you kind of prepare yourself for the day that that parent is not going to be here anymore.
Mhm.
But when something like this happens and overnight you get a phone call or, you find out or somebody come and tell you, one of your parents are not going to be with you anymore. It's not only the grief, but it's the trauma of not knowing how to deal with that.
Mhm.
So before we dig in more about this and your book and everything else, can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. I mean, it's the shock of it, right? Is that life has unexpected turns, but even us all knowing that life is unexpected, this is definitely something you don't expect, right? We expect to live longer than our parents. We expect to have our parents for very important milestones in our lives, right? And so for me, it was the shock of it, the shock of like what is reality, what is real, what is not, right? And it's like it was just like a whole black field came over me of just shock and just what is life, what is like in the moment, just collapsed to the ground, just like what is this can't be real. um and yeah, that's the biggest part of for my journey, my story of what really led me into self-exploration and then transforming my whole journey into now helping people to do that for themselves in less extreme examples, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
the extreme immersion into that moment in my life is what has allowed me to be as big as I am now and to be as resilient and fortitude. But it's really that shock factor, right? And I think that all of us have some points in our lives where there's some sort of surprise or shock, but this one was my big one. This one was my big one for sure. For
And
sure.
what do you think it was the biggest lesson for you going through that?
Oh
What
my
did you
gosh.
learn about yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean like all of it. Do you mean like overall or do you mean in the moment of
In
like
the
first
in the
hearing it?
moment, because I imagine if it happened like it happened with me, I lost my dad very abruptly. And, you know, you first go through all the stages of grief, right? You're in denial, then you get angry, then you get sad. I mean, you go through that. But then there is a moment when you realize that you are not the victim of this story, that you
Mm,
can actually make something out of it, and
mm.
you have an aha moment.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that aha moment for you?
Yeah. That aha moment actually didn't come till about 2 or 3 years later. So for me, because of the shock and trauma of it all, I was actually in a dissociative state for a good 2 years. So that being where I'm separate from my body, just existing like a zombie, honestly, and just in
Mhm.
survival mode, right? And there was this point where, truth be told, I was ready to kill myself. I was ready to be done and was on the bathroom floor in grad school. Had gone back to grad school to get my doctorate in physical therapy and was like mentally of like, I got to do something with my life. But it was definitely from like, I don't know what else to do. Let's just go back to school kind of thing. But then confronted with, and I write about it in my book a lot more in detail, but it's confronted with the reality of life and being in a very challenging scenario where it's like being a doctor of physical therapy is already challenging enough. Nonetheless, when you're recovering from trauma and you're going into cadaver lab and you're facing what reality of life and death and helping people and what is healthy and all that. And so in that first semester of PT school is when I hit that rock bottom of like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be done with this.
Mhm.
And then I heard the loudest no I've ever heard in my life. Literally, spirit came, it like was like the divine came to me and was like, no, absolutely not. Your story doesn't end here. You have to, your story must be shared with other people. And it was this moment of this negotiation that I was actually having with the divine spirit. This is all the same words to me. The same thing is that there's bigger purpose to this pain. There's a bigger purpose to this story that if it ends here, there's no purpose to it.
Mhm.
Right? But if it's
Right,
shared with other people and if it's used to transform my life and then other people, that's where there's beauty that comes out of it.
right,
And that's absolutely what my mom would have wanted and still wants and has supported me in this whole journey. But
right.
that was that moment.
Wow. And thank you. What a moment that had to be. I'm sure your mom is very proud of you. Thank you for sharing this and for your vulnerability. You also told me that this journey of grieving and healing has opened the possibility to really learn about grief and all the different kinds of grief. When we lose somebody we love, it's it's terrible. But it's also terrible when we have to lose somebody that's still alive. And I wanted to get curious with you about that because I know that you also coach women that are going through grief and are going through that. And sometimes when a relationship doesn't work and you have to make the decision of removing
Mm,
that person out of your life,
mm,
what can you tell us about your experience in those areas with your clients? What are the biggest challenges in comparison with actually losing somebody that,
mm.
passed away?
Yeah, no, I love this question because that can be some of the really challenging, triggering things for people because we're engaging with living human beings. But if somebody's the walking dead, right? And we usually those of us that are in that intuitive empath that are connected to our own sense of self in some way, we want that for our loved ones, right? I would love for you to meet. I want everybody in this world to meet their soul at the soul
Hmm.
level, right? And
Right.
when we see somebody not doing that, that's the walking dead, and it's heart-wrenching, right? And what a lot of people try to do is, especially if you care so much, is try to make that person want that, right?
Mhm.
And there's a big relationship to losing someone the way that I did because and the learning of this is that my mom had her own journey in her life. And the
Mhm.
people that we love, they have their own journey in their life. And it's a big level of maturity and spiritual development to say that, like, I'm not actually responsible for somebody else's life. And I can influence others by claiming my own,
Mhm.
right? Is that if we're the most living being integrated human being, what I call an integrated human being, to where it's like I'm living, but like I have darkness, I have light, I have grief, I have joy, I have all of the spectrum of being a human being.
Mhm.
And the best way to help others come alive is to be alive. yourself, right? Because it's light sparks light, right? And so I would actually say that a lot of people are spinning their wheels trying to get their loved ones to change when we're actually denying the change within ourselves that we really actually need to be making. But what's happening is we're seeing that reflection and it's irritating because we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
we're looking at our own shit, honestly, right?
Mhm.
And but there's definitely a parallel to that acceptance, this acceptance that they have their own path. And as hard as it is to come into that acceptance, it does create it requires some maturity and some will to say that, like, I can only be responsible for so much, right? Like, and that's a
Mhm.
big part of grieving too, is that, again, whether it be living or is it our hearts with other people, right? Like if you have a kid or if you have a partner, if you have a husband or anybody that you relate to that your heart is with, there's a reason like our heart goes out to them, right? Like my
Yeah.
heart goes out to you. And it's a very interesting development in when you're is like you kind of bring your heart back to then nurture your heart so then you can ultimately like let your heart be shared, but it's not from a place of like giving over your heart. It's like my heart's here and I can
Mhm.
share it with you and the world and everybody, but it's a big shift to do that. It's a bit and that's what I help a lot of people with. A lot of people, the people that I work with and coach is that because a lot of times people are coming and complaining about their external circumstances, right? They want to change their lives, but they're explaining, getting caught up in the external, and that's all the reflection of what's going on inside.
Hello, ladies. I am so excited to invite you to join the Inner Radiance Collective. This is a sacred space for women ready to step into their power, purpose, and abundance. Whether you are a busy mom feeling burned out or a woman craving for more joy, balance, and meaning, this membership is designed for you. We offer 3 powerful levels, including my Inner Radiance Mastermind signature program, where you will get one-on-one support in my proven transformation framework. If you're ready to put yourself back on the priority list, heal, grow, and shine from the inside out, this is your time. Tools, support, community, sisterhood, and there is so much waiting for you. DM me to learn more or subscribe to my newsletter. Your radiance is calling. I will have more details in the description of this show. And now, back to the interview. And there is no moving on. You have to first feel the feeling.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when somebody loses a loved one or is going through a grieving process, we try to push them to do it faster because I think the deep inside is because we don't want to see them suffer. So we want them to move on, right? It's always like, you need to move on. But it doesn't work that way,
Mhm.
right?
Oh no, not at all. Like that's the biggest, I would say that's the biggest myth of grieving, but also healing, honestly, is that if we're trying to skip over something, we're not integrating and taking that experience and being whole in it. What we're trying to do is separate from it. And yeah, so when we're trying to separate from these experiences, then we're literally, it's called compartmentalization, where you're saying like, well, this doesn't get to be a part of this and this doesn't get to be a part of this. And what we're doing is we're denying the whole experience of life, and that
Right.
whole experience of life is what allows us to enjoy things, right? Like everything has its complementary opposite. If I can tell you, as a matter of fact, I would not be able to experience the extreme amount of joy that I can had I not experienced the depths of grief that I did. And there's a direct correlation to like, what do we allow ourselves to experience? And so a lot of people are just trying to keep themselves within this like comfortable zone of lived emotions and experiences because it on some level there's control there, right? But what that does is that you're limiting your experience, and you're gonna feel off, honestly, right? Like if so the number one thing, and there's this whole section in the book that I talk about, is the best thing that I could do with my grief was fall down to it, was just to fucking collapse
Yeah.
and just sob and just like actually feel the feelings. And I talk about that too, about how in our culture, we just haven't built in grieving processes and the honoring. In many indigenous cultures, there's a ceremony, there's a like a period of days to where it's just like we're all under the understanding that we need to feel this, right? We need to feel this so that we can move through it. But it's the moving through it is being in, like, just being in it, you know, just like just, you know, like we love marinated food. It has more flavor, it has more taste, right? Life has more flavor and more taste the more that we're like, yeah, I'm feeling sad, because if you feel that sadness, when you experience joy, it's going to mean so much more, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you talk about reclaiming joy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like being present and aware that joy is still available for you and reclaim it. And that is what inspired you to write that book, right?
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps everywhere, because when I first was thinking about writing this book, if I
Hmm.
would have come from my headspace of what was logical or what I thought would have been accepted, is that it's like, okay, here's how I went through grief and here are the steps, but it's like, how many gajillion of books are out there about the steps of grieving? What my story is actually about is joy. It's
Right.
actually, I got to joy through grief, right? And
Hmm.
that's actually what the story is about. And I would love the dynamics and the conversations about the grief journey to be about what's on the other side of it, and what, like, where we find joy amongst it. And whether
Right.
any dark emotion, there's a light-filled emotion that's there for us. But when we're in our very limited skew point, like when I was in my depression, all I saw was grief and pain
Right.
and torment. And so it was this reclaiming of that, like, it's actually reclaiming of yourself. Like, I was, in truth, it's like you realize that your joy doesn't come from anything outside of you, because it can be
Hmm.
taken away at any point in time. The joy is within knowing thyself and coming inward in thyself and stoking the light within yourself. And the more that you do that, you realize, oh, the joy is in here, not out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
100. And also, you have the guilt of feeling joyful. It's like,
Mm.
I'm not supposed to be joyful right now because I'm supposed to be grieving. Did you have those moments where you were trying to reclaim your joy and feeling guilty at the same time because you're supposed to feel bad and sad and depressed?
No, not for me, honestly. I was, like, such in the thick of my depression. Like, when I was in it, I was in it, and as I was coming back up to joy, it was like air to me. It was literally
Mm-hmm.
like air of life, and it was like, "Oh god, okay, there is air here, there is air here." But what I
Mm-hmm.
would say more, what I'm experiencing now, being 15 years later, Claudia, is that now that I'm, like, embodied in my joy, is what I do experience, is now I feel the guilt of it. Not then. It was like
Really?
in the process of it, I was just like, I just need some breath of life. Now that I'm
Right.
actually living in it, is that I find myself navigating my relationship with joy now more so because I'm on the outskirts. Like, actually, just this week I experienced this interesting relationship with joy, as I literally got my first physical copy of the book
Mm-hmm.
this
On
last
Mother's
weekend.
Day, right? You got
Yeah,
it on Mother's Day.
on Mother's Day I got it. And it's surreal, right? And it was like I couldn't, it was like I had to, honestly, I couldn't accept the joy at first, to be totally honest. You know, like I was like, there was something that was just like blocking me. Like, this is surreal. I was back in that. And so truth be told, is as I'm healing and as I'm coming out with the story, and now, like, coming out to the word and sharing it on podcasts and sharing it in my book, and just being like, okay, world, now's the time for the story to come out and not just be held within myself. Yeah, I'm navigating this relationship with grief and joy real time, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What would you tell somebody that is feeling the first part of your experience, that they're in the depression, that they are in the, feeling unmotivated, stuck? What would you advise somebody that is going through those motions and they don't see the possibility of joy? They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They
Mhm.
just are stuck. And the thing is that what we pay attention to expand. So if we don't see the possibility of joy, that's it.
Yep.
Everything we see is dark. Everything we see is down. Everything we see is not possible.
Mhm.
So what had worked for you, and what do you tell your clients that are stuck in their grief?
Yeah, well, the first thing is like, have you dropped really actually into it? Like, the whole, like, dropping down. Like, if somebody just holding themselves in grief and they haven't just let themselves plop, like, if you
Mhm.
haven't, like, gone on the floor, gone on the bed and just let it out, scream into the pillow, just like, even for 3 minutes to feel the depths and the heightened emotion. Because what that does, Claudia, is that breaks open something. Because if we're holding, there's no space for anything else, right? So
Right.
if we can just let go just the teeniest little bit for a 2-3 minute cry, that leaves like a crack, just like the littlest crack for light to come in, right? And it's in that crack that now what I invite people to do is to imagine a higher connection, right? And this is not a fake like connect to God thing. It's just like there's something that is keeping you here. You're not dead yet.
Mm.
This gets real intense for people, but this is how I'm like, I need you to know you're not dead yet. There's a soul inside of you that's still living, and you can connect to your soul. And so by yourself, you need to first drop down and realize that you want the connection to your soul. That's why you're still here.
Right.
And that it's there, it's somewhere in your field. And then, truth be told, if you actually can't do that for yourself, you need help. We need that reflection from someone else so that someone else can see your light. And if I can't, so when people who really can't see it, it's like I need to be able to pick it up and show it to you and be like, here it is, right? So if you're really struggling, you need help, but it's not from a place of that you couldn't do it by yourself. You just haven't learned. We never got a handbook on this, right? Like
Right.
nobody ever told us this stuff. And so it's not a moment of weakness to be helped. It's actually a moment of actual real soul strength to be like something in me still is here and wants to live. And if I really can just let that ember of light just be stoked a little bit, whether I can stoke it or if somebody else can help me stoke it, but just let's get a fire going.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be real that your fire's dead first, to be honest, right? And so I think a lot of times people would expect that answer to be like something, but it's actually drop first. It's
Right.
drop
You gotta
first.
surrender
Yes.
to the
Yes.
pain,
Mm-hmm.
to the reality, to what is no longer what it was.
Yeah.
And that I think it goes with those kind of scenarios when you actually lose somebody and when you choose to, separate from a relationship in life,
Yeah.
when you have to grieve that relationship too. Is
Totally.
surrender and feel all the feelings and accept the fact that that person no longer belongs to your life and you have to move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing about transformation is acknowledging what is. So if you literally, and it can start the smallest thing of like, I feel angry. Like that's a big thing to claim. And most people are
Mm-hmm.
actually shy of claiming that they have anger or rage or resentment. Just like,
Yeah.
I feel angry. I feel resentment. I'm pissed off. What the hell? Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are actually a lot of the processes I take my clients through of like, we need to acknowledge what's actually going on and not be in denial because denial is what is compartmentalizing part of your life experience. And the transformation actually comes when we take the whole life experience. And that's in alchemy what we call the lead. The lead is what is used to transform to gold.
Mm-hmm.
We need dense, heavy life experience to then allow us to transform to then be born to the new light of who we are, right? But most people are skipping over is taking it all and like that's the fertilizer for the growth.
Right.
But again, we never got the handbook to that. We were never told like you need to use those experiences. Most of us were told like push those to the side, carry on, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because and also sometimes we rush, we want to get better, so we don't deal with those things.
Because we
And,
don't want to feel those things, right? If I feel
right.
angry, who wants to feel angry, right? Like nobody
No.
wants to feel angry. So then we're just like, okay, I don't want to feel angry. Yeah.
But I think the problem also is that, and we don't talk a lot about this, your body start feeling that pain. Now your body start getting sick because you're not healing emotionally,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah, you got it, girl. That's the crux of my entire clinic. So I have a physical clinic where I treat people in person, but then in COVID, I was led to come online and now I do healing online. And this is exactly where chronic conditions come from. So chronic pain, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders,
Mhm.
hormonal dysregulation, all these things that but a lot of women experience, but any human can experience this because what happens is when we have an emotion that we don't synthesize, we don't acknowledge and just like address it when it's right there. What happens is it's too much. So what we do is we stuff it into the body. That's called somatization. And what
Mhm.
happens is if that is left there, it's festering. That energy is now festering. So then what that does is that manifests in your organs and your nerves and your blood vessels contracting and developing a compensating mechanism inside of them that then ends up to an illness and a diagnosis. So the people that come to me with these complex conditions that they've exhausted all options. They've gone to all the Western medicines, got all the MRIs, got all the everything. They're like, they can't find anything. Then they've gone to the holistic providers and I've done acupuncture, I've done this, can't find anything. Usually
Wow.
what it actually is that the two need to be combined. Is that we're a spirit inside of a body, but if my spirit and my emotional body is at a discord with my physical body, and I don't want to touch base with that, there's a
Mm-hmm.
a disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually help people heal themselves from these chronic conditions by virtue of going back to what have we not addressed? Where is it held in the body? But it's in this relationship to spiritual embodiment, like emotional embodiment. It's like we're actually, the emotions that we don't address, we're embodying them in us, right? Like I know everybody listening, and you probably too, Claudia, is like, you can think of somebody who comes in and they're just like so tense. And it's like, what are you holding on to? My God, man. Right?
Yeah, the energy. Yeah. I mean, I'm a very sensitive person, so sometimes I have to just move away a little bit because if not, I'll become a sponge and I get that heavy energy. It's funny, my daughter and I were in the airport yesterday and I was having a conversation with somebody in the phone, and my daughter is like pulling away, and I'm like, "Where are you going?" And she goes, "She's heavy." Like she
Mhm.
could, through the phone, she could feel the energy of this person that was so heavy. And
Yeah.
sometimes we hold on to that because that's what is familiar to us, right? When
Well,
we go
well,
through difficult times, or we're grieving, or we're having a tough moment in our life, instead of process those emotions, we hold on to those emotions because that's what is familiar, and
mhm,
we are afraid to let go. But I agree with you 100%. It can make us sick. And I have experience talking with some of my clients that they tell me, I don't feel I fit in my body. I feel that this is just not aligned with me, and I
mhm,
don't know how to explain it. And I'm like, you don't have to. I understand. But in order for us to figure this out, we really got to go deeper and
mhm,
find out where is the root of this feeling.
mhm,
Why is causing for you to feel this way?
mhm.
How do you advise your clients when they feel like that? What would be some steps they can take?
By themselves?
Hmm.
Mm,
Of course, I always tell them to ask for help. But let's say somebody is listening to you right now and is
yeah.
like, you know what? This is exactly how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first is like, if you were to draw a picture of how you view your body. Like, let's get like real like grade school, right?
Hmm.
Like, if you were to just draw a picture, even if it's a simple stick figure, just like draw how you are relating to your body. Because the first step is actually to become aware of how you relate to your body. And oftentimes we're having an unconscious relationship with our body that we're not actually even aware of. And yeah, most of us can say like, okay, yeah, I have a poor body image and that sort of stuff. But like, we're going to go a little deeper here. If your body is a being, like if your body was a friend, how do you relate to your body?
Hmm.
Honestly, we're probably going to be like, I actually like kind of think poorly of my body. I actually like talk shit to it. I don't, right? Like, and if we actually get
Hmm.
real about how we're relating to our body, but we do it from, okay, I'm just getting information. I'm not here to beat myself up even further, right? Like,
Right.
I'm just here to get the information. Is what that starts to reveal is how we're relating to the body and what that relationship is. So everything is about relationship, right?
Hmm.
So how I relate to myself as a spirit, how I relate to myself as a mind, how I relate to myself as a body. And so we have these aspects to us, but when we're starting to reclaim these aspects and come into wholeness, the first step is to see, how do I currently relate to it?
Hmm.
And then obviously is to evolve that relationship. So how would you love your relationship for your body to be? And it's going to start in these very small glimpses of things. And truth be told, somebody can do this on their own. But again, it's so much easier when you have a guide and you have a roadmap of like, because what happens is when we step outside of ourselves, and is when I'm not in your system, I can view things more clearly, right?
Right.
And also using my skills and my intuition is that there's a reason why I'm an embodiment specialist, is because this is literally what I help people do. So
Mm.
we got to be real that there is going to be an upper limit that people can actually do to themselves, because you have blind spots to
Mhm.
yourself, right? But
Right.
in the beginning, you got to be inquisitive about your blind spots. Those are some of the things of like, one, start to be inquisitive about your blind spots and start asking yourself, how am I relating to my body? How do I relate to my soul? How do I relate to my mind? So that you can see where the discord is. And then that is the pathway that you can start adapting that. But that awareness is definitely the first step.
And you talk about all this stuff in your book, correct?
Yeah, so my book goes into some actual practical exercises to go into, and then I'm actually, what's funny is in this last week, it's come through for me to create a playbook for more in-depth exercises and guided meditations. But it's like my book is not only my story; it's a combination of my story intertwined with wisdom and guided practices to help people inquire within. But a lot of this is about turning the mirror back and see what's going on inside of yourself. Yeah.
This is so interesting to me. Um, I appreciate you being in the show because I know that right now a lot of people are going through a lot of emotions, especially the way the world is going, and they're grieving, unfortunately, loved ones that have passed away, but also because of everything that is happening in the world, we are more in tune with the healing and we are more aware that we need to heal. And in the process of healing, we have to let go of some relationships. So then you also go through the grieving of those relationships. So
Yeah.
I think this interview is really on point right now. And I want to motivate everybody to go and get your book. Tell me, where can they get it?
Anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any major retailer, and I'm looking to get them into local bookstores. So let me know if there's one because bookstores can order them. But really, anywhere
Okay.
you can find you like to buy books.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have all your links. So if anybody is interested in getting The Good Grief, tell me the subtitle.
So the full name is Good Grief. Subtitle is The Journey from Grief to Joy.
Perfect.
Hmm.
So much appreciate you being in the show, Devon. I really enjoyed talking to you and learning about this, and I'm sure my audience did too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I absolutely enjoyed it and loved all of your questions and love the service that you're giving to your community. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you all for listening to the Don't Shrink to Fit podcast. If you like this episode, please write a juicy comment below and subscribe to my podcast. Remember, we can only fly if we embrace each other. Until next week, be happy, be safe, and be kind to yourself.